Good morning, good morning, good morning, or evening, or whatever time it is, because you probably aren't watching this live, although to those of you that are, welcome. Um, so, welcome to another episode of Arcana Unearthed. I was hoping it wasn't going to be just me today, but schedules being what they are, can I just say, by the way, first of all, number one, hello to everybody that has found us through threads. Um, yes, that was a lot of fun yesterday on threads. We are on threads, so do check us out on there at Bardic Quest. But also, aside from that, huge shout out to all of the community managers out there who who put in a hard day's work yesterday. But also, a big shout out to all of the regular live streamers. It's been a bit hard to get the schedule organized around live streaming. So to everybody that's able to stay consistent on their days and dates and everything, more power to you, because if you watched our last episode of this when we went through the fighter class, I had hoped to get this stream up and running on Wednesday, but life just got in the way, as life tends to do, so we've moved it to this morning instead. So thank you, everybody, for your patience if you were waiting with bated breath on our opinions of the Sorcerer class, which is, of course, what we're going to be looking to get into today. I'm quite fond of the Sorcerer class myself. I very rarely get to play as a player in a D&D game. I am a forever DM, as I've mentioned many times. But on the few occasions I have been able to play in a D&D game, most of the time I've lent into the Sorcerer class. Not all the time, but most of the time it's probably been my main class. Although that being said, so much am I a forever DM that it has been many, many years since I played as a sorcerer. So my recollections is probably a bit sketchy. But we'll see how we get on. So, obviously we're still looking at playtest packet number 5 of the Arcana Unearthed, but we are catching up to get to playtest packet number 6 and getting into some of the really interesting stuff that I've been hearing about that playtest packet. But for now, playtest packet number 5, the link should be in this episode description for you as well if you did want to follow it along. So I'll do this as I've been doing it thus far. I'll look at how it reads in the 2014 Player's Handbook and compare each thing as we go through to how things may have changed. So we'll start, as we always do, with the design notes for the Sorcerer updates. So, these are the main updates. And again, as they've always noted, this has been inspired by the feedback from the Player's Handbook survey in 2021. Innate Sorcery. This is a new first level feature giving 2 Sorcerer-only spells that represent the rolling magic within. The other new Sorcerer features in this playtest emphasize the Sorcerer's ability to tap into their innate magic to create extraordinary effects. Now, these spells will have been covered in the episode that we went through, which I think may have been episode 3 of Arcana Unearthed, where we looked at the new spells, but we may revisit them on a kind of in passing as we go through, because some of them were pretty cool. I think one of them was essentially becoming magic incarnate, which is pretty cool. But we'll revisit that. The spellcasting feature gives more spells to the sorcerer over the life of the character, now capping at 22 spells rather than 15, which is one of the most requested changes to the class. I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing, because the sorcerer does feel limited, which I must be honest, I'm a little bit nervous about where they're going with the sorcerer and all of the changes that they have made to spellcasters generally, because I don't want the sorcerer to feel too much like a wizard. So it's welcome that they've given the sorcerer more spells, but I also don't want them to give the sorcerer too many spells, because otherwise it's just going to feel like the wizard class. But 22 feels like a nice number. It feels sensible. 15 did feel very limited, which you get to 15 now at 10th level, just looking at the table here. So that is a welcome improvement, I think. 22 spells for a 20th level spellcaster sounds fine to me. Anyway, Font of Magic now has a sorcerer level prerequisite for creating each spell slot. We'll come to that in more detail. Meta Magic has moved from 3rd level to 2nd level, also quite welcome. The feature also now gives you 3 meta magic options instead of 2, and you get 3 more at 13th level. It also lets you change one of your meta magic options after each long rest. Well, I've been having a debate with one of you and one of my players as well in our page play games about these long rest changing options, which I've been in favour of thus far. I don't know if the meta magic thing might be a push too far for me. I don't know. We'll come to it. This is kind of the footnotes at the moment. I'll voice my opinion as we get to it later. Sorcerer's Vitality, a new 5th level feature. Nice. Arcane Eruption, a new 7th level feature. Sorcery Incarnate, 9th level feature. Sorcerer's Restoration has moved from 20th level to 15th level, and it now also restores some sorcery points when you roll initiative. Okay. Arcane Apotheosis is a new 18th level feature, and Epic Boon is a new 20th level feature, one that we're familiar with by now, if you've been following along. But if you aren't, essentially it increases an ability score and raises the score's maximum from 20 to 30, and also gives you an Epic Boon feat, which has been across the board. Again, the latest playtest packet is possibly going to change those around from what I'm hearing. So, let's get into comparisons, shall we? Starting with the most basic of things. So, hit dice remains at 1d6 per sorcerer level. Hit points at 1st level remains at 6 plus your constitution modifier. Hit points per level after 1st remains at 1d6 or 4 plus your constitution modifier. So no changes there. Proficiencies. Armor training. None. Remains the same. Weapons. We have simplified the way it's listed to just simple weapons, which I don't think actually changes the... Oh, actually, it might do. Yes, it does, actually. It opens up a few new weapons, I believe. Off the top of my head, it will open up... Oh, yes. A lot more weapons. Before, they were proficient in daggers, darts, slings, quarterstaffs, and light crossbows. Now they're going to be proficient in clubs, daggers, great clubs, hand axes, javelins, light hammers, maces, quarterstaffs, sickles, spears, unarmed strike doesn't really count, crossbow, light, dart, shortbow, sling. So that opens up a lot for them in terms of weapon proficiencies, which is nice. Tool proficiencies remains at none. Saving throws remains at Constitution and Charisma. And skills you get to choose from Arcana, Deception, Insight, Intimidation, Persuasion, and Religion. So that remains the same too. Starting equipment, which they have seemingly been simplifying as I've been going through these. So you get to take these options, or you can just take 50 gold pieces towards your equipment of your choice. Before, you got to choose between a light crossbow and 20 bolts, or any simple weapon, a component pouch, or an arcane focus, a dungeoneer's pack, or an explorer's pack, and 2 daggers. Now they're giving you basically no choices, other than either taking the 50 gold or this packet of equipment that they're giving you, which is a arcane focus, specifically a crystal, 2 daggers, a spear, 28 gold pieces, and a dungeoneer's pack. So you don't even get the choice of the explorer's pack, which I'm not sure how I feel about that. I mean, again, you could just choose the gold and kit it out yourself, I suppose, which I guess simplicity is what they're going for. So that's fine. So that's the basics over with. Now we get into the nitty-gritty of the class features proper. So, we start with, at first level, Innate Sorcery, which is a new class feature for the Sorcerer. Innate Sorcery. An event in your past left an indelible mark on you, infusing you with a simmering magic that is sometimes challenging to control. Basically, what this gives you is 2 permanently prepared new spells, Sorcerer's Burst and Chaos Bolt. I think they're both new. Just to reiterate, I'll just go through the flavour of Sorcerer's Burst. You cast Sorcerer's Energy at 1 creature or object within range. Make a ranged attack roll against target. On a hit, target takes 1d6 damage. If you roll a 6, you get to roll another d6. So it's like exploding damage dice, essentially. Which is nice for Sorcerer's Burst. And what was the other one? It was Chaos Bolt. Which, if I just flick through, Chaos Bolt was... Where's Chaos Bolt gone? Chaos Bolt. You hurl an undulating mass of chaotic energy at 1 creature in range. Ranged attack. On a hit, 2d8 plus 1d6. Choose one of the d8s. The number rolled on that die determines the attack's damage type. So it's a random damage type on the d8 out of Acid, Cold, Fire, Force, Lightning, Poison, Psychic, Thunder. I like it. It's flavourful. It leans into this idea of the Sorcerer being this innate spellcaster and almost a little bit chaotic, which I like it. I like it. Although, I don't want every Sorcerer to feel a bit wild magic-y, is the only thing that I would say. I like the fact that the narrative of the Sorcerer is just, I have power like surging through my very blood. I like the fact that the flavour in which that innate power comes is decided somewhat by the subclass. But then, that being said, I suppose this idea, I think of it almost like X-Men, I guess. This idea of having this power that at first level... you're still trying to understand how to control it. I guess that makes sense. Yeah, I've talked myself around. Yeah, this idea of like a young sorcerer being unsure how to control that power is nice, I suppose. Yeah. Okay, yeah, I've talked myself around. So, first level spellcasting. This is the next class feature, which is not going to have changed much, I can't imagine. I hope not, anyway. Let's see. So, spellcasting. They've really laid this out a bit differently. So spellcasting with sorcerers is a lot more simple, perhaps, than wizards, because you don't prepare your spells. You know your spells. You see, now I'm already not happy with the innate sorcery. I've just reread that again. It's talking about having the spells prepared. I'm not sure I like that. So sorcerers in 2014, you know your spells. You don't have to prepare them. You're just limited with how many spells you can cast, and also limited by how many spells you know, rather than prepared. Let's see. Let's just read this. I'm not going to do a comparison because the spellcasting can be a bit complicated, but that's essentially the nuts and bolts of it with a sorcerer as it currently exists. First level spellcasting in this playtest material reads thusly: drawing from your innate magic, you can cast spells. Good so far. See the player's handbook for the rules on spellcasting. The information below details how you use those rules as a sorcerer. Cantrips. You know 4 cantrips of your choice from the arcane spell list. That's at first level. Obviously, that grows as you go. Rather than choosing, you may start with Light, Message, Prestidigitation, and Shocking Grasp. So it gives you a starting build. Whenever you gain a sorcerer level, you can replace one of your cantrips with another arcane cantrip of your choice. Okay. I think that... I'm pretty sure that kind of exists in the sorcerer. Or was that like an optional rule? I think it was an optional rule. But I think that was, oh yeah, when you get level up, you could retrain some spells. I'm pretty sure that was a thing, or that might be a homebrew. I've forgotten now. It's been so long. But I'm pretty sure Sorcerer can retrain in some magic. When you reach 4th and 10th level in this class, you learn another arcane cantrip of your choice, as shown in the cantrips column of the Sorcerer table. Good so far. Spell slots. The Sorcerer table shows how many spell slots you have to cast your spells of 1st level and higher. To cast one of these spells, you must expend a slot of the spell's level or higher. You regain all expended spell slots when you finish a long rest. I don't think that's changed at all. Good. And here's the one that makes me nervous now. Prepared spells of 1st plus level. You prepare the list of spells of 1st level and higher that are available for you to cast with this feature. To start, choose 2 1st level spells from the arcane spell list. Rather than choosing, you may start with Burning Hands and Detect Magic. So again, speeding up the character creation process, which I like. The number of spells on your list also increases as you gain Sorcerer levels, as shown in the Prepared Spells column of the Sorcerer table. Whenever that number increases, choose additional spells from the arcane spell list until the number of spells on your list matches the number on the table. The chosen spells must be of a level which you have spell slots. For example, if you're a 3rd level sorcerer, your list of prepared spells can include 6 arcane spells of 1st or 2nd level in any combination. If another sorcerer's feature, such as innate sorcery, gives spells that you always have prepared, those spells don't count against the number of spells on the list you prepared with this spellcasting feature, but those spells otherwise follow the rules in this feature. I think that might stump people creating a sorcerer. I think you're going to end up with sorcerer players with not enough spells prepared or learned. I hope learned, but they're using the language prepared, which makes me anxious. I think that needs tidying up a little bit, just in the way it's communicated and perhaps in the way it's tracked as well. Because basically it's like the number on your list has to match the number, but also there's all these additional ones. So your number shouldn't match the number. It should be greater than the number on your chart. I think that's going to get messy for people, just in a way it's communicated and a way it's presented. But as a feature, that's fine so far. Here's where I'm getting really anxious now. Changing your prepared spells. Whenever you gain a sorcerer level, you can replace one spell on your list with another arcane spell for which you have spell slots. Okay, thank Christ. Okay, good. Because I was worried with the using the language of prepared spells, and I know that they've been changing some of the casters like the ranger and things from rather than having a learned list, a prepared list. Although now I'm thinking I might need to go back and review those. Because I think they've simply unified the language of, rather than having learnt spells or known spells, to prepared spells. At least for the sorcerer. So that's good. Unifying the language is good. They're just changing how often one can prepare spells. Which actually, from a lifestyle change, again, that's another one of those very nice improvements. Just unifying the language, which they're doing a lot, but just changing necessarily how the classes interact with that particular rule. Everybody prepares spells rather than learns spells. It's just the rate at which and the frequency at which one prepares the spells is different per class. I think that's sensible. I like it. The only thing is when you unify the language like that is you lose some of the flavor and the tone, which I'm not sure how I feel about. From a lifestyle perspective, from a gameplay perspective, that's nice, but it also then puts a little bit more burden on the dungeon master to paint, to decode the rules and put it in such a way that it is narratively appealing. So I'm not sure. I like the mechanics of it, Not sure how I feel about the flavour, which seems to be a running theme for me as we're going through some of these. Spellcasting ability. Charisma is your spellcasting ability for your spells you cast with your sorcerer features. Great. Spellcasting focus. You can use an arcane focus as a spellcasting focus for your spells you cast with sorcerer features. Fine. Good. I'm happy. I was anxious. I was very anxious about how this was going to play out in terms of the prepared spells versus known spells. But so far, so good. So very, very happy with that. Font of Magic. So, how it read previously. You tap it. Oh no, that's the new one. How it read previously. At second level, you tap into a deeper wellspring of magic within yourself. This wellspring is represented by sorcery points, which allow you to create a variety of magical effects. Sorcery points, you have 2 sorcery points, and you gain more as you reach higher levels, as shown in the sorcery points column of the sorcerer table. You can never have more sorcery points than shown on your table for your level, which does increase as you go up. You regain all spent sorcery points when you finish a long rest. So let's start with the sorcery points, because there's a few aspects to it. So, how it reads for the new playtest packet. You tap into a deep wellspring of magic within yourself. This wellspring is represented by sorcery points, which allow you to create a variety of magical effects. You have 2 sorcery points and gain more as you reach higher levels, as shown in the sorcery points column of the sorcerer table. You can never have more sorcery points than shown in this table. You regain all spent sorcery points when you finish a long rest, which remains the same. You can use your sorcery points to gain additional spell slots, or sacrifice spell slots to gain additional sorcery points, as described below. You can learn other ways to use sorcery points in some other sorcerer features as meta magic, or such as meta magic. Okay, so that's fine. That is actually a new, not a new thing, an old thing that they've moved the way they've described that, because actually this flexible casting feature is something that existed before, but they gave it a separate name as a sub feature of Font of Magic. So, flexible casting, you can use your sorcery points to gain additional spell slots, sacrifice spell slots to gain additional sorcery points. That looks to me to be the same. Creating spell slots as a bonus action. You can transform unexpended sorcery points into 1 spell slot as a bonus action. And obviously, so it costs the same. That's not changed. So it would be 2 sorcery points for a first level spell slot, 3 for a second, 5 for a third, 6 for a fourth, and 7 for a fifth. There is linked, it seems, a minimum sorcerer level before you can do that, so it unlocks things. But I think that probably just aligns with when those spell slots become available, to be perfectly honest, which, looking at the table, I think that's the case. So that's not really changed. That's remained the same. It's just presented differently. I won't bother reading it because it is pretty much exactly the same. Oh, what's this thing about long rests? Any spell slot you create with this feature vanishes when you finish a long rest. Okay, well, again, I think that was fairly self-explanatory, but again, I think that's just a rules clarification for those that needed it. So, meta magic, which was a 3rd level feature, is now moving to 2nd level. So, meta magic, as it read before, at 3rd level you gain the ability to twist your spells to suit your needs. You gain 2 of the following meta magic options of your choice. You gain another one at 10th and 17th level. You can use only 1 meta magic option on a spell when you cast it, unless otherwise noted. And then we have the list of options, which we're going to come to later with the meta magic options, apparently. So I will come back to those. I don't know why they've separated it out, but they have. But we'll go following the structure of the Unearthed Arcana, so we'll come to those later. But as it reads now is 2nd level. Because your magic flows within you, you can alter your spells to suit your needs. You gain 3 meta magic options instead of 2 of your choice from meta magic options section later in this class's description. You can use only 1 meta magic option on a spell when you cast it unless otherwise noted. When you finish a long rest, you can replace one of your meta magic options with one you don't know. I don't know about this. This long rest thing. I don't know. Maybe it's just because of the discussions that I've had with people about things seeming a little bit off flavour and off in terms of immersion with this changing things up on the long rest. I've been saying how I've been a fan of these options for these martial classes to run drills to change their weapon mastery options after a long rest, because from a gameplay perspective, when the DM says to the spellcasters, right, what spells do you want to prepare, it gives these characters options to do during that time, so it's not dead table time. Everybody's kind of going over their character and seeing how they want to optimize for the day ahead. So with this, it's the same thing, because it gives the sorcerer something to do, because they're not preparing their spells every day, which would have been the easier option, I think, for them with the sorcerer. But they've stuck to what I love about the sorcerer, and they've gone, actually, they can just change out how they interact with magic, which I think is cooler. Yeah, do you know what? Again, I've talked myself round. I think this certainly makes more sense than the martial classes just doing drills with their weapons and being able to change things up. So that's fine by me. Oh, I don't know if we're going to get through the subclass today, you know. Let's try and speed this up. So happy with that. I think that does make sense from a narrative perspective. And again, also a nice lifestyle improvement too. 3rd level, Sorcerer subclass. You gain the Draconic Sorcery subclass or another Sorcerer subclass of your choice. The Draconic subclass is the one featured in this playtest packet. The Draconic Sorcery subclass is detailed after the Sorcerer's class description. A subclass is a specialization that grants you special abilities at certain Sorcerer levels. For the rest of your career, you gain each of your subclasses features. Blah, blah, blah. So essentially, this is just explaining what subclasses are and how they work. The subclass features will have moved around, I think, from the looks of things. Subclass feature at 6th level. Subclass feature at 10th. Yeah, things have changed around a little bit in terms of the order of those. Then at 4th level, you gain a feat. Then at 5th level, you get Sorcerous Vitality, which I believe is one of the new ones. It is. 5th level feature. You can use your innate magic to heal yourself. You always have the Sorcerous Vitality spell prepared, which, just to recap what Sorcerous Vitality does, Sorcerous Vitality, you draw on your innate magic to fill yourself with vitality. You regain a number of hit points equal to 2d6 plus your spellcasting ability modifier. And if you have any of the following conditions, they end on you: blinded, deafened, and poisoned. I don't know about that. I don't know what I said with when we actually went through the spells, but reading it again, we don't need to give sorcerers healing. That's what a cleric is for. That's what a paladin is for, or a druid is for. Let's not have sorcerers be healers. I mean, yes, they're only healing themselves, but come on. Do we need to give this game any more healing options? I don't know. I don't know. Again, I'm talking from the perspective of a dungeon master. For me, I don't have a problem with character death, because I think, and this is even when I'm playing as a player, because I think it opens up a storytelling opportunity. And also, like, games, we all know this, games with God mode get boring pretty fast. If the players always think they're going to win just because they can heal themselves whenever they want, I mean, yes, it's going to use a spell slot, but I just don't know if a sorcerer needs to be able to heal itself. Surely the healing should be dependent on having the healing potions. If every class can heal, we don't need healing potions anymore. And come on. I don't know. I don't know about Sorcerer's Vitality. I think players are going to love it. It's another way to heal. But as a DM, I'm like, not everybody needs to be able to heal at a moment's notice. I'm sure I'm going to get some pushback on that. And it's not that I want to kill my players' characters off at all, but I at least want there to be a threat of them dying. You know, I want them to at least feel that if one wrong move and this could go very badly for them, like the peril is necessary for the drama. Right? We all know this. Yeah, I don't know. Anyway, before I beat on that drum too much, at 6th level, you gain a subclass feature. We'll come to that. At 7th level, you gain Arcane Interruption, which is essentially another spell that you always have prepared. So, just as a reminder, Arcane Interruption. Interruption? Arcane Eruption. That's very different. Arcane Eruption, churning magical energy, explodes in a 20-foot radius sphere centered on a point you choose. When you cast the spell, you select the type of damage dealt by the explosion. Acid, cold, fire, lightning, poison, psychic, or thunder. Each creature makes a constitution saving throw. On a failed save, creature takes 6d6 of the chosen type. I don't think that's a bad thing at all. Fine. Just an extra sorcerer-specific spell at that level. Cool. I think they could give something cooler maybe, but cool. 8th level, you get a feat. 9th, Sorcery Incarnate. You get this Sorcery Incarnate spell at 9th level, always prepared. Again, you transform yourself into magical energy, which is, again, a very, very cool spell. I like that narratively. Like, there's just so much magic coursing through your veins that you just have to transform yourself into this glimmering being of magical energy for the duration, which lasts up to 1 minute. You gain 1d4 sorcery points until the spell ends, and you also gain the following benefits. You can choose up to 2 of your meta magic options on each spell you cast, provided you pay the sorcery points, and you have advantage on the attack rolls for every spell you cast. It's just pretty cool. It's just like super duper. It's like supersonic from the Sonic games, but it is a sorcerer form. I don't know where that analogy came from, but that's what I'm going with. No, let's go with Super Saiyan. Yeah, that's right. I used to watch Dragon Ball Z. Yeah, Super Saiyan for the sorcerer, which is very, very cool. Subclass feature at level 10, we'll come to that. A feat at level 12. At 13th level, additional meta magic. You gain 3 more meta magic options of your choice. 3 more? At 13th level? Wow. So you're going to have 6 at 13th level. Cool. 14th level, subclass feature we'll come to. 15th level, Sorceress Restoration. You regain 4 expended sorcery points when you roll initiative or finish a short rest. Cool. Fairly simple. Again, these sorcery points are what you use your meta magic for. So fine. Cool. Nice and simple. 16th level, you gain a feat. 18th level, Arcane Apotheosis, which I believe is also a new one. It is. You are now so suffused with magic that you can alter reality itself. You always have the Wish spell prepared. Talk about burying the lead on the update. You always have the Wish spell prepared, and if you undergo the spell's casting stress, you have no chance of losing the ability to cast the spell. Fuck off! What? No. That's too much, surely. Unlimited casting of the Wish spell. Always I don't know if that's too much. In addition, you can cast Wish to replicate a spell of 1st through 8th level without expending a 9th level spell slot. You instead expend a slot of the replicated spell's level. Once you use Wish in this way, you can't do so again until you finish a long rest. I don't know about giving a sorcerer essentially unlimited uses of the Wish spell. Maybe, though, that's me being slightly hyperbolic. I think the wish spell is it's very powerful, obviously. I just would 18th level you could probably cast wish anyway as a wizard. It's just that they're taking away the chance of losing the ability to cast it, which I don't know if that's too much. I like the idea of always having it prepared. I just don't think it needs anything more than that. I don't think it needs more than that. The idea of them not being able to lose the ability to cast it seems too much. Anyway, 19th level, feat. We'll come to that in a minute. 20th level, you get to choose an epic boon. You gain the epic boon of energy resistance or another epic boon feat of your choice. So the one of energy resistance, which is the one that they are suggesting, but you don't have to take. Epic boon of energy resistance. Increase your constitution, intelligence, wisdom, or charisma by 1 to a maximum of 30. You gain resistance to 2 of the following damage types of your choice. Acid, cold, fire, lightning, necrotic, poison, psychic, radiant, or thunder. Whenever you finish a long rest, you can mediate and change those choices. Hello, Carl. Good to see you. I think it's fine if you as the DM get to counter wish at will. Winky face. I mean, well, yeah. I mean, it is incumbent upon the Dungeon Master, I think, to be as creative with how to handle wish as possible. So I think, yeah, by all means, if if the ability is there for you to do some cheeky things, by all means do some cheeky things. So long as I think those cheeky things are equally available to the players. And that's kind of generally my rule when it comes to DMing. Whatever the players have at their disposal, so too do the enemies. And I think that's then counteracts some of the so-called balance issues that people talk about at higher levels. Like, sure, your sorcerer does have wish, but so does the 18th level spellcaster that you're facing off against. He too has wish. And so, yeah, counter-wishing the wishing at will. Kind of at will. Makes sense, I guess. Yeah. I think the talk of higher levels being really unbalanced, I think somebody, I can't remember which YouTuber was saying it, but this idea of throwing what the players have back at them really helps to alleviate that concern, and I think I'm inclined to agree with that. So let's get back to this sorcerer. Yes, I agree, Carl. Carl's saying 100%, but also who actually plays at that tier? This is all fun theory. It's true. I mean, there are some DMs that specialize in 20th level campaigns. Unironically, B. Dave Walters, I know, is very well known for running 20th level campaigns with people. Although that is mostly on stream, I think. But I'm sure he runs some homebrew games too. I more specialise in those lower level ones rather than the higher level ones, as we know. So that is then the main thing for the sorcerer. Oh, but we also have these meta magic options. So that we don't run out of time, because I want to cover the subclass too. I'm just going to go over the updates rather than the comparison readings of these meta magic updates, rather than comparative reading compared to 2014. So the Careful spell now prevents an affected creature from taking half damage on a successful save. Okay. Oh, actually, I think I am going to have to read this by comparison, because it's been a while. Careful spell. When you cast a spell that forces other creatures to make saving throw, you can protect some of those creatures from the spell's full force. To do so, you spend 1 sorcery point. Choose a number of those creatures up to your charisma modifier. A chosen creature automatically succeeds on its saving throw against the spell. Okay, so it's going to be reworded so that a chosen creature automatically succeeds on its saving throw against the spell. It takes no damage if it would normally take half damage on the successful save. Fine. Okay, cool. Distant spell increases a spell's range by a number of feet based on your sorcerer level, rather than doubling the spell's range. For most spells, this results in a greater increase than before. Okay, fine. I feel as though they're trying to preempt the people that were going to complain about that. At least 5, so equal to 30 times your sorcerer level. Okay, fine. So an extra 30 feet from first level. Cool. Oh yeah, actually that's massive increase on the distance. I don't know though. Is that going to make range essentially obsolete on spells from like second level? Probably. Well, not second level. In fact, actually, you won't get meta magic options until second level, so you're going to be increasing it by 60 feet anyway when you get meta magic. So by fourth level, it's going to be 120 feet. I don't think many combats start with a range of over 120 feet. So yeah, range on your spells is essentially going to be null and void, provided you have sorcery points. But I suppose sorcery points are finite. When you cast a spell that has a range of touch, you can spend 1 sorcery point to make the range 30 feet instead. Fine. Extended spell now also makes it easier to maintain concentration on the affected spell. Let's see. When you cast a spell, it has a duration of 1 minute or longer, you can spend 1 sorcery point and double its duration to a maximum duration of 24 hours. If the affected spell requires concentration, you have advantage on any saving throw you make to maintain concentration. Fine. Equally makes just as much sense. Carl's saying naval combat is going to be weird. I think naval combat with sorcerer... Oh, a ship full of sorcerers just blasting another ship with fuck knows what. That sounds pretty cool to me. Weird, yes, but cool also. Alright. Heightened spell now costs 2 sorcery points rather than 3, so they made it easier to use. Great. And it imposes disadvantage on all the target saves against the spell rather than only the first save, so they've boosted that up. So just to reiterate, heightened spell is now reading thus. When you cast a spell that forces a creature to make a saving throw to resist its effects, you can spend 2 sorcery points to give one target of the spell disadvantage on its saving throws against the spell. Cool. Nice. Simple. Effective. No problem there. Quicken spell now includes a clarification on how it interacts with the game's general rule on casting bonus action spells. We discovered that some players read Quicken spell as an exception to that general rule, which was not our intent. I like these rules clarifications that they're doing as they release these playtest materials. They're really clarifying the language, which I think is a good thing. So when you cast a spell that has a casting time of an action, you can spend 2 sorcery points to change the casting time to a bonus action for this casting. You can't modify a spell in this way if you've already cast a spell of first level or higher on your current turn, nor can you cast a spell of first level or higher, nor can you cast a spell of first level or higher spell on this turn. I think they've typo there. On this turn after modifying a spell in this way. Cool. So yeah, it doesn't give you the option to cast more spells than you normally would, which I think is good that they have clarified that. Because given the flavour of Quicken Spell, this idea that I'm casting spells more quickly, I can see why people would misinterpret Quicken Spell as being a way to break that rule. So good that they've clarified it. Seeking Spell has been imported from Tasha's Cauldron of Everything, so it's now part of the core rules for the spell. Seeking Spell, I must admit, I'm less than familiar with. Seeking Spell sounds as though it's going to be like a homing missile. If you make an attack roll for a spell and miss, you can spend 2 sorcery points, reroll the d20, and you must use the new roll. You can use Seeking Spell even if you have already used a different metamagic option during the casting of the spell. Cool. Alright. I like that. It's kind of like with advantage, but except you have to take the second roll rather than the highest, so it's a slightly less powerful version of advantage, I guess. Cool. I have no problems with that. Transmuted Spell has also been... Subtle Spell first. Now also removes the need for material components on the affected spell unless it consumes its material components. Subtle Spell reads thus. When you cast a spell, you can spend 1 sorcery point to cast it without any verbal, somatic, or material components, except material components that are consumed by the spell. Okay, cool. So yeah, all components, not just verbal and somatic. Which I think makes sense, because if you are leaning into the material components thing, really the casting of the spell is, you're getting out your strip of iron and manipulating it, and if you're trying to be subtle and you're not doing any of the somatic components, not doing any of the verbal components, but you're still getting out your little bit of metal and just tinkering with it in front of somebody, that's probably less than subtle. So a good move from a logical perspective there. Transmuted spell has also been imported from Tasha's Cauldron of Everything. When you cast a spell that deals a type of damage from the following list, you can spend 1 sorcery point to change that damage type to one of the other listed types: acid, cold, fire, lightning, poison, thunder. Again, fine. I'm not sure I'm a huge fan of the changing of the damage types. It just doesn't excite me from a gameplay perspective. And they're leading into that a lot, which, again, they're perfectly welcome to. But yeah, it just doesn't excite me that much. Does the lack of verbal components break through silence? Let me see. Let me see the wording of silence. That is a good question. Silence. Let's see. For the duration. Casting a spell that includes a verbal component is impossible here, is the last sentence of the silence spell, as it appears in the 2014 Player's Handbook. Yes, it would break through silence, which I guess is kind of the point of subtle spell in many ways anyway. So yes, to answer your question, Carl, it would. Twinned spell has been redesigned. The 2014 version was too powerful, since it basically allowed you to cast 2 spells on the same turn, as in Quicken Spell, and to cast the extra spell with a sorcery point discount. For example, a 3rd level spell slot normally costs 5 sorcery points, but in Twin Spell it only costs 3. The targeting limitation of Twin Spell failed to contain how overpowered the option was and caused confusion. The new version of Twin Spell keeps the sorcery point discount, with Quicken Spell carrying the extra spell on turn weight. This redesign has allowed us to remove the targeting limitation that Twin Spell had before. So it reads thus: cost 1 to 5 sorcery points. When you cast a spell of 1st to 5th level that you also cast on your previous turn by expending a spell slot, you can fuel this turn's casting of the spell by spending a number of sorcery points equal to the spell's level, rather than expending a spell slot. Right. Okay. How does that compare? How does that compare? Because that doesn't sound... I mean, obviously that's the new version, so it sounds fine. Twinned spell. When you cast a spell that targets only one creature and doesn't have a range of self, you can spend a number of sorcery points equal to the spell's level to target a second creature in range with the same spell. Oh, okay, they've dramatically changed it then. That is dramatically changed. So basically, rather than being able to target a second creature, you're instead just not expending a spell slot. You're using your sorcery points instead. That kind of sounds a bit crap. Yeah, I mean, resource management, fine, sure, but I don't think I'd be excited to use Twin Spell, really. Yeah, I prefer the old one, but yes, it was far too OP. So I want to try and get through this Draconic Sorcery class, because that is all of the features of the Sorcery class basic. Let me just grab a drink. But before we do go into the Draconic Sorcery subclass, I did want to just highlight that I have launched a new pay-to-play game today, which should last through most of the summer and take us into early September, I think. But these things are always quite tricky to predict, of course, because D&D is a fluid creature. I am going to be running the Dragons of Stormwreck Isle starting from a week this coming Wednesday, which I believe is, if memory serves, the 19th. Yes, the 19th of July, 7 p.m. UK time. That will be our session 0. If you go to bardicquest.com/stormwreck, that will take you to the Start Playing Games page where you can book in. It is $20 per player per session. Don't at me if you don't agree with paid DMing games. It's obviously not for you. But for those that are unable to find a group, or those that don't live near a friendly local game store, or can't even leave their house for whatever reason, because there are still people who are vulnerable and terrified of COVID still, which is perfectly appropriate for them. Or people that can't leave the house for other reasons. It's great for those. So if it's not for you, don't at me. That's fine. But if it is for you, it's $20 per player per session. For the first 2 people that book up, it is $10 off your session 0, which with my session 0s, it's more like a 0.5. We do tend to hop into the actual start of the campaign during session 0 after we've dotted our I's and crossed our T's. So that is bardicquest.com/stormwreck if you fancy having a go at Dragons of Stormwreck Isle, in which you will explore the mysterious Stormwreck Isle and uncover its secrets, face the elemental threats originating from the grave of an ancient dragon, investigate a shipwreck entwined in the remains of a gold dragon, confront the horrifying curse lurking within, and, of course, battling a dragon in its lair. Because if you're going to call an adventure Dragons of Stormwreck Isle, you want to be damn well sure that there's an encounter, at least an encounter with a dragon. But again, dragons, so you would hope more than one. So yes, bardicquest.com/stormwreck if you fancy joining me for a game of D&D on Stormwreck Isle. So, Draconic Sorcery. Let's look at this subclass, which let's have a look at the updates, because they look as though they've done quite a few updates, and again, I think they want to lean into this innate sorcerer idea that they have been talking about. So, this was previously called Draconic Bloodline, but they've changed it now to Draconic Sorcery. So, the idea is they've actually addressed the naming change in the design notes here. Formerly Draconic Bloodline has the new naming convention for sorcerer subclasses, X Sorcery, where X is a word like draconic, aberrant, or clockwork. Clockwork sorcery. That's something they're exploring. That'll be interesting to see. That will be very interesting to see. So that's fine. So they've addressed the naming. Fine. Again, I mean, they're unifying the language, which is nice, but it kind of loses some of the flavour. The Draconic Bloodline versus Draconic Sorcery. But I guess the idea is that they're trying to maybe allow for a bit of flexibility from their flavour standpoint. Your innate magic comes from the gift of a dragon. Perhaps an ancient dragon facing death bequeaths some of its magical power to you or your ancestor. So they're kind of opening it up to mean different things rather than it just being that you are of draconic blood, which I understand. Draconic Resilience now gives a base AC that is 10 plus your dex and charisma modifiers rather than 13 plus your dex modifier. This change will result in higher AC at later levels. Cool. Tapping into the charisma a little bit more, which again makes perfect sense. Dragon Speech, formerly Draconic Ancestor, now lets you communicate with any creature that has the dragon type. The damage type choice has moved to Elemental Affinity. Let me see now. We'll come back to that, actually. Elemental Affinity no longer charges a sorcery point for the resistance. In surveys, people have requested more uses for the damage type associated with this feature. The playtest versions of Draconic Exhalation and Draconic Wings both respond to that request. Draconic Exhalation has replaced Draconic Presence, a low-rated feature in the subclass, so people were not liking Draconic Presence. So we'll come to that. Dragon Wings now modifies Sorcery Incarnate and includes a damage option. C'est intéressant. So let's go through one at a time, and we'll compare these before we wrap up. So, Draconic Resilience. As it read in the 2014 Player's Handbook, it read thusly. As magic flows through your body, it causes physical traits of your dragon ancestors to emerge. At first level, you gain hit point maximum increases by... No, sorry, your hit point maximum increases by 1 and increases by 1 again whenever you gain a level in this class. Additionally, parts of your skin are covered by a thin sheen of dragon scales. When you aren't wearing armor, your AC equals 13 plus your dexterity modifier. It now reads, in the playtest material, thusly. The magic in your body manifests physical traits of your draconic gift. Your hit point maximum increases by 3. Interesting. And increases by 1 again whenever you gain another sorcerer level. Parts of you are also covered by dragon-like scales. While you aren't wearing armor, your base armor class equals 10 plus your dex modifier plus your charisma modifier, as we talked about in the update notes. What they didn't mention is that the hit point increases have been improved. So when you first get it, your hit point maximum increases by 3 rather than 1. But it only increases by 1 again with every level, which is fine. I mean, it's over the span of the subclass, or rather the span of the class, you're gaining, they've rounded it up essentially to a nice 20, which is fine, okay. I don't think at higher levels it's going to make a huge difference, but there we go. Dragon's Speech, which was formerly Dragon Ancestor. So Dragon Ancestor read thus. At first level, you choose one type of dragon as your ancestor. The damage type associated with each dragon is used by features you gain later. And then it lists them. You can speak, read, and write Draconic. Additionally, whenever you make a charisma check when interacting with dragons, your proficiency bonus is doubled if it applies to the check. Okay. So now it's Dragon's Speech, which is much simpler. Your draconic gift causes your speech to be understood by all creatures of the dragon type, and you understand their communication. So it doesn't matter what language you speak. If they're a dragon type, you understand each other. The damage choice has moved to Elemental Affinity, which comes in at 6th level now. Draconic Resilience... Draconic Ancestry was 1st level. Dragon Speech comes in at 3rd. Oh, yes, because as a sorcerer you picked your subclass at 1st level, didn't you? And now you're picking them at 3rd. So that kind of makes sense. It's shifted things around a little bit. So the Elemental Affinity thing comes in at 6th level, which it did technically anyway with the old sorcerer. But obviously they've moved some of the features of Dragon Ancestor to Elemental Affinity. So the Dragon Ancestor stuff you would have got at 1st level, like the damage type. But then it doesn't come into you for 6th level. So six whole levels later. So Elemental Affinity did read thusly. Starting at 6th level, when you cast a spell that deals damage of the type associated with your Draconic Ancestry, add your Charisma modifier to that damage. At the same time, you can spend 1 sorcery point to gain resistant to that damage type for 1 hour. So now it reads thusly. Your draconic magic has an affinity with one of the damage types associated with dragons. Choose one of those types: acid, cold, fire, poison, or lightning. You have resistance to that damage type, and when you cast a spell that deals the damage of that type, you can add your charisma modifier to 1 damage roll of that spell. Cool. It's fairly straightforward. It's the most complicated bit is actually the way things have moved around in the class progression. But otherwise it's fairly straightforward. So not really much to comment on here. More uses of the damage type. Okay, right, yeah. So cool. All right. Fine. Really nothing complicated there at all. So 10th level, then we have Draconic Exhalation, which has replaced Draconic Presence. So Draconic Presence came in actually at 18th level before. So Draconic Exhalation is going to be replacing this, but comes in at 10th level too. So Draconic Presence, which was an 18th level feature, you can channel the dread presence of your dragon's ancestor, causing those around you to become awestruck or frightened. As an action, you can spend 5 sorcery points to draw on this power and exude an aura of awe or fear, your choice, to a distance of 60 feet. For 1 minute, or until you lose your concentration, as if you were casting a concentration spell, each hostile creature that starts its turn in the aura must succeed on a wisdom saving throw or be charmed if you choose awe, or frightened if you choose fear until the aura ends. A creature that succeeds on this saving throw is immune to your aura for 24 hours. So it's like the dragon feature, really. So Draconic Exhalation now replaces that, because basically Draconic Presence was something that people weren't particularly interested in, particularly at 18th level. I mean, that's a bit sucky. So they've replaced it with Draconic Exhalation, which comes in at 10th level. Once per turn, you cast Sorcerer's Burst. You can exhale it in a 15-foot cone rather than selecting a target within range. Okay, so you're casting Sorcerer's Burst, but you're changing it from a sphere that comes out of you to a 15-foot cone. To cast the spell in this way, you must choose the damage type associated with your elemental affinity feature. When you do so, you make a separate attack and damage rolls against each creature in the spell's cone. Okay, fine. And then 14th level, Dragon Wings, which was 14th level before as well. At 14th level, you gain the ability to sprout a pair of dragon wings from your back, gaining a flying speed equal to your current speed. When you create these wings as a bonus action on your turn... you can create these wings as a bonus action on your turn. They last until you dismiss them as a bonus action on your turn. You can't manifest your wings while wearing armor unless the armor is made to accommodate them, and clothing not made to accommodate your wings might be destroyed when you manifest them. Fine. Nice that they had that clarity about armor and stuff in there before. Now Dragon Wings reads thusly. Your innate magic can now manifest as spectral draconic wings on your back. Oh. Why? Why do they have to be spectral? I think DMs are going to change that. I think that's ridiculous. While your sorcery incarnate spell is active, you sprout these wings, gain a fly speed equal to your speed, and can hover. Well, oh. So your sorcery incarnate spell has to be active, and you can hover, which is an important thing to note. In addition, at the end of each of your turns, you can flap the wings to unleash magical energy, dealing damage to each creature of your choice within 15 feet of you. Cool. The damage equals your charisma modifier and is the damage type of your elemental affinity feature. Okay, fine. I kind of understand. So So the spectral draconic wings is a way of bypassing the thing about clothing and armor and such. And they've kind of lent into the sorcery incarnate spell. I don't understand why Wizards of the Coast have a problem with just allowing dragon creatures to have dragon wings. Like, I don't understand this issue around just letting people have dragon's wings. The spectral thing really is unnecessary. Because it's not like with others where they're saying it could be like this or it could be like this. They're saying, no, it's spectral draconic wings, which just seems so unnecessary. But again, I think Dungeon Masters are going to be like, nah, they're proper dragon wings because it's more cool rather than just like phantom wings. Weird. Also, your sorcery incarnate spell has to be active, which is kind of it kind of nerfs it a little bit. But I guess I think they're wanting to limit how often you can do this, which resource management. I'm always a fan of a bit of resource management. So from a mechanical perspective, fine. I guess that's also why they've gone with the spectral wings as well. They're magical wings rather than permanent wings. Oh yeah, that kind of makes sense actually. Fine. Probably means Carl throwing the shade at Wizards probably means they don't have to code in wing holes in their VTT thing, as they don't like homebrew stuff. Yeah, you could be right. You could be right. Makes things a little bit easier to manage because then, yeah, they don't have to acknowledge. Because also, that's going to be really, really difficult for players or DMs to be like, yeah, they've bought armor, but they've bought armor with wing holes in, so they can use it. I think the cynic in me thinks you might be right there, Carl. I'm not gonna lie. Yeah, okay. I mean, I'm coming around to the feature. I'm starting to understand. It's actually not about alleviating the wing holes thing, although that is that may well have been a factor, but actually turning it into a resource management thing rather than it being a permanent thing that you can just do as a bonus action whenever you like. It's kind of tied to a resource outside of the action economy, which is fine. That makes perfect sense to me. I do like the damage thing, though. I don't know if necessarily it needs to be elemental damage. That seems a bit weird that you're going to flap your wings and acid damage. Like you're going to spray acid over people from flapping your wings. That seems a little bit weird. But I understand kind of what they're going for. I just don't know if it needed to be elemental damage. Maybe like bludgeoning damage would have been enough. But then it's a 14th level class feature. Who knows? So that is the last of the Draconic Sorcery subclass features too. Some final thoughts. I admit I was really, really worried coming into the Sorcerer class because they were using the language of prepared spells for everyone. I was worried that they were going to take away the what separates the Sorcerer from the Wizard in this idea of them just knowing all of their spells and having them ready, versus the Wizard that knows a lot more spells but has to pick and choose which ones they have ready. I was really, really relieved to see that that's not the case, that essentially the Sorcerer works in the same way in terms of having those spells learned, but they're just unifying the language so that it's prepared spells, which they only prepare when they gain Sorcerer level. And you can only replace one spell on your list with another spell. So they've just codified that training and made it more of a permanent class feature that players are going to remember. Of like, okay, this is time for me to change one of my prepared spells up because I've leveled up. So I kind of like it. Again, it's one of those lifestyle changes that they've made that I think is a good move in terms of gameplay. Again, I just don't know how I feel about simplifying things so they're easier to track at the table, but losing some of that flavour. Because by changing the... I am a strong believer, and this is in life, not just games and things, but I think the language that we use matters because it does conjure up different things. I train actors as well, and this is something I say to my students all the time, is like the language that we are using as human beings matters. The way we want to affect people matters, and the words that we use conjure up imagery and different imagery for different people. Prepared spells versus known spells, the language is such that it kind of takes away some of the magic of the Sorcerer for me, in that this idea that the Sorcerer just knows these spells because they are innately magical, versus having prepared their spells. It kind of moves the Sorcerer back into the territory of studying their magic rather than just knowing their magic. So it's a weird thing for me to get hung up on, but I think it does matter for the communication of the flavour of the class. So I hope they move that back to known spells rather than prepared, but I don't think they will. Because again, this unity of things, which, though Carl was throwing some shade at Wizards, I think it might be a factor. This idea of prepared spells versus known spells is going to make things easier to code, because you're going to be using the same coding commands of prepared spells for every class. So cynically, that could very well be it, and is probably also a reason why they probably won't change it. But overall, functionally, the Sorcerer has remained the same, which I am glad about. So that was my biggest concern coming in. I don't know how I feel though about the flavor that they're going for in terms of this. I don't like the fact that the Draconic Sorcery is now less about being of dragon ancestry and instead tapping into a dragon's magic. Again, the flavor of that I think loses something by opening up these various options, which again, like, a DM could say, oh yeah, you're not actually of dragon blood. You know, if the character that you want is that more that they were gifted this magical spells by a dragon, there's no reason why you couldn't do that. And I suppose the other way around is true as well. But I don't know. It just lost some of its shine for me by making it about tapping into dragons' magic because of reasons, rather than by saying, well, you are of dragon ancestry. And equally, the fact that the Sorcerer doesn't get the subclass at first level. Again, they're kind of making it easier for players to onboard before they have to choose their subclass. So again, from a lifestyle perspective, I think that's a good change. But again, I think that's partly why the Draconic Sorcery has lost some of its magic, because it doesn't make sense for you to be of Draconic ancestry, but not to actually get any benefits of being of Draconic ancestry till 3rd level. So they've had to change it up narratively to make it fit this new mold. Again, I understand it. I'm not sure if I'm a fan of it. I like the changes that they have actually made to the mechanics of the Draconic subclass, though. I like the Draconic Exhalation versus Draconic Presence is much cooler. Again, I don't know if it needs to be tied to Sorcerer's Burst. The way they're tying things into these spells that you just have permanently prepared is a nice idea. It feels as though they're kind of taking away some of the coolness of the Sorcerer. That being said, Sorcery Incarnate is an awesome spell, which I love the idea of. I don't know if I want my dragon's wings tied into it, though. Again, from a narrative perspective, like, just let me have dragon's wings. I don't need to be in this Sorcery Incarnate mode, like beast mode, kind of, just to get my dragon wings. Just let me have bloody dragon wings at 14th level. Just let me have dragon wings. Like, yeah, that I understand a lot of the decisions they're making, but they're for me, some of the coolness factor has kind of gone from the Sorcerer, because they're almost being a bit too prescriptive about what being a Sorcerer is, rather than leaving it as open to interpretation as it was before. So, mixed feelings, because Sorcerer is one of my favourite classes, and I don't know if I agree with it, if I'm as excited by the Sorcerer class now, because it almost feels as though it's being pigeonholed in a way. Now you have to do it the old-fashioned way with a knife and some glue. Which I'm guessing you're talking about the dragon wings there. Yeah. Some players will, I'm sure. So yeah, so that's kind of my thoughts. I like it from a mechanical perspective. I think mechanically it makes so much sense. It's just from a flavor perspective, I'm not a fan. Really, in kind of how that pigeonholes the Sorcerer into a particular type of magic user. It kind of leans into the wild magic stuff a little too much for my taste. I actually really like the wild magic Sorcerer. It's one of my favourites, but I don't want every Sorcerer to be a wild magic Sorcerer. It kind of diminishes the wild magic Sorcerer in that respect. So those are my thoughts. Do let me know what you think as well in the comments.
let us know what you think of the Sorcerer class, whether you like it, whether you don't like it, and indeed the Draconic Sorcery, and kind of the way they're going with the subclasses and this idea of Chaos Incarnate and Sorcery Incarnate as a sorcerer. Do let me know. Also, if you have made it this far, do give us a thumbs up. Do give us a hit on the subscribe button. And also, just in case you weren't aware, I have said it in the last few episodes, but we are now part of the YouTube Partner Program on the lowest tier. So if you did want to support the show and the cost of running the show, you can give us a super like or a super chat or whatever. Which we would be very, very grateful, because it does cost to produce a YouTube channel. I think it's easy to underestimate how much it costs with software and equipment and things. So if you did want to financially support the show, then we would be very, 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 very grateful. But frankly, a like and a subscribe is sufficient enough for growing the show, supporting the show, and helping us get in front of other people. So thank you, Carl, for sticking with me for the entirety of this, and for any others that have been popping in and out that didn't say hi. Thank you very much, and obviously for those of you that are viewing in the future, because of the magical time-traveling abilities of the internet, thank you also for tuning in, and I will catch you guys. I'm hoping to do the next live stream to be Monday, probably in the afternoon, but keep an eye out on our YouTube channel. Again, hit that subscribe button and the bell icon and you will get notified, where we will be looking at the Warlock, which some significant changes to the Warlock, just particularly in how it interacts with spellcasting versus pact magic. So we'll see how that plays out then. But for now, thank you very much. I hope you have a lovely, lovely weekend.